FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
Ronald Reagan, and there are 2 chapters in the book about the administration. And all this time, and the book discusses it, the commission worked with civil rights groups, women's rights groups, all the disability rights, all the groups, to find out what their complaints were, to try to bring them to bear with the agencies, to do that right from the beginning, because it saw itself as going out and helping the people. I mean, that's what they're supposed to be doing, okay? And listening to people and helping people and finding out what the people wanted, not what the president wanted or somebody else or the Congress or somebody else. So that Reagan came along, and Ed Meese was his point man on this. And they had an interesting idea. They said, this little tiny agency, we want to redirect civil rights. We want to go against affirmative action. We want to confine women's rights. We want to do all these things. So what we'll do is get control of the commission and have them be our mouthpiece. And they will be the public face of our change. And they will announce and applaud that everything we're doing is right. And people will think what we're doing is right, because they'll see this big sign behind them saying, Commission on Civil Rights. And they'll stand up there and say, what he did today was perfect. And then everybody will say, fine. And then we can do it. And then our constituency will like it. Our right-wing constituency will like it. And then the other people will be mollified. They won't know any better. And they'll think that everything must be fine. And if anybody complains, then we'll just point them to the Civil Rights Commission. They had one big problem, and that was that the commissioners wouldn't go quietly. And so they couldn't do, first they fired Fleming and a guy named Horn, who was the vice chair, and they went relatively quietly because they were Republicans and they didn't want to make waves. And Fleming told us that if in fact we leave quietly, they'll leave you alone, because he didn't know what they had in mind. And then they fired me and 2 other commissioners, and then we sued him, Reagan. And that's when we sued him, and he was like shocked, you know. And the federal district court judge heard our case, and we told her we were watchdogs, and he fired us because he made the mistake of telling the press that I served at his pleasure and I wasn't giving him any pleasure. And the judge in the case said, federal judge said that we were watchdogs and that you cannot fire watchdogs for biting, because that's what watchdogs do, you know. And then they did a big compromise like they do in Washington, where the Republicans and the Democrats in the Congress got together and danced and said they had the grand compromise. And what they would do is create a commission, new structure with 8 people, and 4 appointed by Congress and 4 by the president. Before, you would just be nominated and be confirmed by the Senate or not. And that way, Reagan could put whoever he wanted, you know, 4 people, and the Congress could put whoever they wanted, 4 people, and everybody will be happy. And it'll be fine. And it was jerry-rigged, and it never worked, and it hasn't worked to this day. And at that point, what Reagan did is he got his 4 people, but then he told the chairman he had appointed, a black guy named Clarence Pendleton, who was a buffoon, but who did go out saying all this stuff about what Reagan was doing was perfect. He told him, don't you worry, I'm going to snooker them. The Congress, they think they fixed this, but I'm going to fix them. And Joe Biden, who's of course now vice president, was chair of the committee, and Joe Biden said, we fixed it. It will be fixed forevermore. Ha, ha, ha. Reagan got the Republicans in Congress to appoint 2 right-wingers to their seats, so he'd have 4 plus 2. So he'd have 6, so that he would have a majority on the commission. This is in his diary. He wrote down that this is what he was doing. And so he took over. He had his mouthpiece, but it didn't work because people didn't believe him. People said, when they got up and said, you know, everything is Jim Dandy and it's fine and wonderful and what he's doing is terrific on civil rights issues, although he won the propaganda war on issues like affirmative action, on the other issues he didn't. And the mouthpiece thing, because Pendleton was such a buffoon, didn't really work. But that was Ronald Reagan, and Ronald Reagan did succeed in the civil rights groups, beat him on all the legislative issues. But they didn't win in the end because he snookered them, and because what? He got the judges. He appointed the federal judges, and the federal judges interpreted the law the way he wanted. So in the end, although he lost on some of those issues, he won.